Rainbow Six Siege has changed a lot since it was released, whether it be the sheer amount of content that has been added to the game or the huge number of changes that have been brought forth. I think we can all agree that modern Siege is a completely different game for what it used to be, both in its gameplay and in its player base. Whether this is a good thing or not is completely debatable. However, what isn't up for debate is the impact that the season we are talking about today had on the game. It saved Siege from a near guaranteed death, and it was able to change the game for the better. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what season am I talking about? Well, for me to lay down the foundation to answer that question, we must first go back to Rainbow Six Siege's development, all the way back in 2011. If you didn't know, Siege wasn't originally supposed to exist. The game was actually going to be called Rainbow Six Patriots. Patriots was going to be a tactical shooter with a campaign and scripted narrative elements, and it was going to be more in line with the other Rainbow Six games of the time. However, the game quickly fell victim to what many of us would call, in modern gaming, development hell. The outdated engine Patriots was made on forced developers to spend a lot of time troubleshooting issues. Whether it be fixing bugs or patching issues with the engine itself, it was a nightmare to work on. But the constant changes in management surrounding the game on top of this made the game in even more of a tricky spot. And with a new console generation right around the corner, Ubisoft made the tough decision to pull the plug on Patriots. This decision, and the soon-to-come console generation that I just mentioned, led to Ubisoft looking for new ways to revamp the Tom Clancy series. So they decided to try and revive the franchise by making a tactical and gritty multiplayer co-op shooter, which eventually became Rainbow Six Siege. However, with the rush due to the next-gen consoles being right around the corner and the lack of future-proofing, the game's code was kind of a mess. This is why people have described Siege's code as, quote, spaghetti code. From what we understand as the community, the code was supposedly very hard to work with and comprehend, and this has even left a ripple effect in today's Siege. The reason the code was like this was because the devs expected this to just be a small multiplayer game with occasional updates. However, as Ubisoft slowly started adding new content, they realized that their code was going to be a problem, and fast. Bugs began popping up revolving operators in their gadgets, and as Ubisoft patched one, a new one would rear its ugly head. Frustration was not only building in the dev team due to them having to work with this awful code, but frustration was also building in the community. Players were tired of constantly having game-breaking bugs riddle their favorite game every time new content got added, and things began building up to a breaking point. Ubisoft could feel the tension in the community, and they knew something needed to be done to make the game at least manageable to work with. Because if they didn't, they knew the code would get worse and more disorganized with every content update, making it harder for them to find and patch bugs or to even add new content. So Ubisoft made the difficult decision to delay an entire season and to take that time to focus on fixing the game's backend. This season would come in Year 2 Season 2, also known as Operation Health. If you haven't been playing for that long, you may not realize just how bad and buggy the game was in the first couple of years. Servers had consistent issues, hitboxes were horrible, and operators were plagued with bugs that could be easily exploited. Due to this, Ubisoft decided to delay the planned content for Year 2 Season 2. This content included 2 new operators, multiple new guns, and a new map that was eventually scrapped. This content would then be spread out amongst the last 2 seasons of the year. In its place, Operation Health would be rolled out. This operation was aimed at solving a lot of the issues with the game, as well as adding more quality of life changes. Some of these quality of life changes included one-step matchmaking, better, more upgraded servers, and the only piece of new content, alpha packs, which has become a staple of the game throughout the years. Now, all of this sounds great and all, but what I'm sure you're wondering is, how did this change Siege forever? Well, you see, the biggest thing that Operation Health brought to the table was its improvements to the game's backend, as I mentioned earlier. This meant that they were able to implement changes that allowed them to be more prepared and ready to release content faster. And it also allowed them to better test content before it was released. And with any extra time they had left throughout the season, they spent that catching up on bugs that were caused by the spaghetti code the game was built on. Siege is already incredibly buggy today, but imagine how bad it would have been if it wasn't for Operation Health. I would argue the game would be nearly unplayable. The servers would be significantly worse, bugs would be rampant and way harder to fix, and we would likely see more operators being quarantined like Clash. Also, content rollout would have likely suffered as well without Operation Health. However, despite all of what Operation Health did for the game, it constantly is memed on by the community.
Operation Health is basically a 3-month period of time that we're going to be taking in order to fixing and repairing the game.
Whether you've been playing for a while or not, you have likely seen clips like these around the community. Why is this? Well, it's because of Ubisoft's lack of communication at the time. A lot of people going into Operation Health were under the impression that Ubisoft was trying to fix all of the bugs and glitches in the game. Just look at the statements Ubisoft made themselves on Operation Health.
The main thing we need to do It's about investing, capitalizing on that game to ensure that we're going to be here for the next years to come.
As you can tell, their statements were extremely vague and it allowed way too much interpretation from the community. Now, to show the kind of mindset people had at the time when Operation Health was released, here is a video of Gregor, a massive Siege content creator nowadays, giving his take on Operation Health.
I was very disappointed in the reveal of Operation Health. You know, I was already kind of irritated with certain ways that Ubisoft was handling the game, but I wasn't like actively upset about it. And now I'm just kind of like, I don't really know how to put it, man. It's just so frustrating because I've been in this for too long. I've been gaming since I was a kid, since I was like a little wee lad, and I know the fucking tricks. I know the fucking PR tricks, man. I know, I can see right through this shit, and I don't think Ubisoft is being honest with their player base about this. I don't think that, you know, the content was put on the back burner, you know, just so they could focus on this.
This operation was received so poorly that there were legitimate meme compilations dedicated to making fun of Operation Health and the statements the devs made on the stream. A lot of these meme compilations and clips would become infamous and would last for years to come. However, what a lot of people failed to realize at the time, including myself, was that in reality they were trying to make the backend more manageable for future development. And in the process of trying to unspaghetti their code, they ended up creating more bugs, which is to be expected with this kind of thing. You can't expect everything to go smoothly when the devs are making changes to the code from the ground up. However, this was never communicated to the public, which led to the community being very irritated with the devs, because not only was no content added in this season, but the game appeared to be in the worst state it had ever been in. Bugs during this season were rampant. Servers were buggy, hitboxes were broken, and everything in between. I can't really blame anyone though, because at the time it really felt like Ubisoft was hiding something. I remember thinking during this time that the game was on a trajectory to die. The bugs were just that awful. This shed Ubisoft in a really bad light that they honestly haven't recovered from. Just look at the likes to dislike ratio on their Operation Health announcements. While I may not agree with everything that the devs do and say, they definitely aren't incompetent, especially in this case. Operation Health was a necessary season. We may not have known it at the time, but this season single-handedly stopped the game from a horrible trajectory. I'm not going to pretend like Operation Health fixed everything, because it definitely didn't, but it was a strong step in the right direction. And hopefully, Ubisoft will consider another Operation Health, because to be honest, it's starting to be that time. And if Ubisoft actually communicates with the community this time, I think people would welcome the idea with open arms. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, I make Rainbow Six Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Also, let me know what your take on Operation Health 2.0 is in the comments down below. Do you think they should do it, or would you prefer them to focus on new content? If you have further questions for me or you just want to see more of me, you can go follow me on Twitch because I'll be going live in 2 hours after this video goes up. If you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now where I talk about the most changed operator in Siege's history. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.